All right, this week we are going to learn about limiting reagents. So previously we've looked at stoichiometric equations, so chemical reactions, and we've always assumed that one of the reactants is, there's lots of it, it's an excess. Um, so now we've got into a situation where we're given specific amounts of each of the reactants, and we're asked, okay, so if I give you, let's say, 5 grams of A and 5 grams of B, how much of my product am I going to get? And the problem there is that we run out of one of the reactants usually before we run out of the other one. And the one we run out of first is what we call our limiting reagent. Um, and so when we're doing the calculations, we've got to figure out what this limiting reagent is in order to do the calculation properly. Because if we use the wrong one, our answer is not going to be right. So the limiting reagent is the one that is completely used up in a reaction. The one that's excess is the one that's left over after the reaction stops. Because when we run out of the one, everything kind of comes to a grinding halt. That's the one, the limiting reagent is the one that determines the amount of product that you're going to get. And one of the things that we got to be careful, though, is because reactions are stoichiometric amounts, it's not necessarily the one that we have less of. Right? And that's something a little bit tough to get your brain around. All right, so the steps that we follow when we're doing this is the first thing is we have to identify which of our reactants is going to be the limiting reagent. And so we have to do a couple calculations to figure that out. Remember, we're going to use mole ratios, right? Once we have that, we're going to calculate the amount of product from the limiting reagent. So let's do a quick example here. So what mass of hydrogen is produced when we have 19.62 grams of zinc, and we react that with 18.96 grams of hydrochloric acid. All right, so there's our reaction equation. I've already balanced it for you. When I set this up, I like to put the amounts given underneath the respective reactants, and that just helps me organize what numbers I need to put where. All right, so the number of moles of zinc, mass divided by molar mass, works out to this many moles. Number of moles of hydrochloric acid, same idea, mass divided by molar mass, works out to this many moles. All right, now we need to understand that when we're looking at the reaction equation, that the number of moles of hydrochloric acid that I would need if zinc were the limiting reagent, I would need twice as much, right? Because it's a 2-to-1 ratio. So if I have 0.3 moles of zinc, I would need 0.6 moles of hydrochloric acid, right? Well, if I look at how much hydrochloric acid that I've actually got, I've only got 0.5 moles, which means I don't have enough. And that is essentially how we figure out the limiting reagent is hydrochloric acid. So even though it's not there in the lesser amount, it is the limiting reagent. All right, so we're going to use now the number of moles of hydrochloric acid to figure out how much hydrogen is produced. So we're going to use the 0.52 moles and use the mole ratio, 1 to 2. And so that's going to give me 0.2600 moles of hydrogen for significant digits. Does that make sense? If I need the mass of hydrogen, then number of moles is equal to mass divided by molar mass. So mass is equal to number of moles times molar mass. And so then we get 0.26 times 2.2, 0.525 grams. All right, quick lesson. It's really straightforward, but you do need to practice it. Because if you don't practice it, you're going to get confused when I give you mixed up sets of questions. And you know you're going to get those come a quiz or two in next week. Um, so later this week, I will give you a quiz on last week's work. And I'll probably post that on Wednesday or Thursday, give you till Friday to do it. And then this is the homework assignment for this week. Again, you don't necessarily have to do all of them, but do enough so that you feel comfortable with doing these types of questions. And then mix it up with the stuff that we did previously, because you don't want to forget that. Make sure that you're able to recognize the different types of questions when you read them. Okay. Good luck. Ask questions, post them on the discussion board. The discussion board's better because then everybody can see your questions, and I only have to answer them once.